Thank you very much. That was very informative. I was especially interested when you started talking about the Terry Wall diet because that's one that comes up a fair bit in recent times. And a friend of mine said, you know, if my mother had her choice, I'd be eating leaves and twigs for the rest of my life, and that would be it. But, you know, if it made me feel better, I suppose I'd give it a shot. But, you know, we have to keep everything in balance, as you say. That's the way we need to go. I do have a couple of questions that I've jotted down over the course of the presentation. And I'm just, by show of hands, are there questions in the audience? Great. Good. Well, why don't we start with yours? So the question is, if you're dealing with mental illness and MS, and particularly in depression, and you're living in Nova Scotia where you may not have a medical plan, how do you navigate your way through the depression and the difficulty of getting out of your house and still live your best life? So perhaps you could give us some suggestions on how to deal with that dilemma.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so it's really about finding the person who can help you with the solution. So, okay. Dr. Fisk.
So, full disclosures, this is not what I do, and so you know that's it's an excellent question, and I think mental health services, as you know, I think there are a lot of people looking at this across Canada, and you know, in terms of strategic access to mental health services is a very hot topic. I'll answer to the extent that I can. Certainly, you do want to start with your family doctor, and that would be the first place to go. Within the MS clinic, there is a psychiatrist associated with the clinic currently who is seeing people, Dr. Terry Chisholm. That's relatively new development, and I mentioned one of our studies was actually initiated by a psychiatry resident who was working with a psychiatrist and seeing MS patients. That was a number of years ago, but and both of those individuals have since left, but Dr. Chisholm is currently with the clinic. There is also a psychologist, a health psychologist, Dr. Jennifer Hendrick, who sees people as well through the MS clinic and provides counseling services, psychological counseling services for individuals with MS. So either of those options are available through the MS clinic. Beyond that, it gets more difficult. And I think that the challenge often is within the general mental health program across the province is finding individuals who are knowledgeable about MS and who can provide the kind of services that you might be looking for. And I think it's important when you are seeking services through a mental health practitioner, to the extent that you can, to try to find individuals who have experience working with persons with neurologic or other health conditions is always helpful because it does present different challenges and issues. That's not to say other people would not be qualified, but certainly, you know, if there is an opportunity to connect with someone who has more experience working with individuals with other health conditions, that's a very useful thing. I don't have any answers, and there are not sufficient mental health services within Nova Scotia, in my opinion. And that's probably true at a national level. And I think it's something that, again, one needs to advocate for. There are, again, going to be private practitioners in Nova Scotia, psychologists, and if they're not in the provincially funded healthcare system, you're going to be paying private practice rates for psychologists. If you have the financial resources, there are individuals available who can provide this kind of counseling services, and there's an Association of Nova Scotia, Association of Psychologists of Nova Scotia, APNS. They have a website that lists all private practitioners in Nova Scotia and their areas of practice. So that's something that one can look and see: is there anyone in your area who can provide the services you need that way? So that's also an option. But again, it requires those financial resources, and as you can recall, that was one of those foundational factors in terms of being able to live well with MS, is that financial flexibility to access those services. So difficult situation.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to come up.
No, and I know you didn't.
You opened up a lot of areas for people to sort of think, where you go. I didn't realize it was psychiatrists or psychologists with the MS.
Yeah, there are, yes.
Now, the other question I have, you alluded to research and interconnecting the computers between doctors' offices and Capital Health. How's that going?
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you repeat the question?
Yeah, so this is connecting health services databases. So what we're doing is we're using the Housing MS Research Unit database, which has been established over a number of years, starting with Dr. Murray, linking that with the Department of Health's billing information. That's actually accessed through the Population Health Research Unit at Dalhousie University. So they have access to the billing information that comes to the Department of Health. They're able to establish anonymized linkages. So we send data over to them with scrambled ID numbers, and the Department of Health scrambles ID numbers, and it all gets linked together, and the people who work on these data are at the Population Health Research Unit, who really aren't able to link anybody's data with an individual person, and they do all the analyses there. And that's how we manage this and maintain confidentiality when we're working with these data.
This is ongoing now?
This is ongoing now.
Just trying to get that program
Nope.
worked out, because it was at a meeting a couple months ago.
No, we've done this before, and in fact, we were, I think, I wouldn't say we're not the only people that have done this, but we're one of the few organizations that have been able to do this on a regular basis. We've done it a couple of times already, going back quite a number of years. It's not easy, and believe me, it's an onerous process to go through and negotiate, and the maintaining confidentiality is a really important. It's a big issue. It's a really important thing. But at the same time, I think my perspective on this is every time you walk into a doctor's office or any time you walk in the hospital, they're collecting information on you. All right, and what are they doing with that? I don't know most of the time.
Sitting in the bank somewhere?
Yeah, it is not data that's collected for research purposes, and we need to understand it's administrative data. But the reality is, as a taxpayer, personally, I hope somebody's doing something worthwhile with it. And so we're trying to, in our view, do something worthwhile with it, and hopefully, you will see that as being worthwhile. Also, we really want to use these data, maximize the use of these data to really inform ourselves about what's happening with the health of people in Nova Scotia. The advantage we have of having a very comprehensive clinic database is we have all real wealth of information about people, because you've been providing that kind of information to us. So we know how you feel about your health. We know about how you've been doing medically over a number of years. Then being able to attach that to the billing data gives us a lot of information that we can use. And we're trying to establish this as something that can be done not just in Nova Scotia, but at a similar level, and it can be. It's certainly Manitoba, and we want to do the same thing in other provinces as well, and hopefully establish a way to really collect a lot of information and use this information, at a national level. That's where we need it. There have been a number of studies on things like prevalence of MS in Canada. And really, Canada is one of the best understood countries in terms of just understanding how many people have MS. But it's sort of province by province by province. The surprising things we did do recently, just a systematic review of MS prevalence studies around the world, honestly. And in the Americas, Canada's got all kinds of studies. It's surprising how little is known about the U.S. We know much more about Canada than the U.S. There's only a few studies there. There's a few in the Caribbean, and there's it's remarkable how little information is really out there that's been done in a very comprehensive, systematic, and standardized way. So we're really hoping that these kinds of things will help us do that in Canada. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, a question for you, Karen. You mentioned during your presentation that calcium supplementation can sometimes result in a buildup in a person's system. And the question is this true for vitamin D supplements as well? How do we know whether or not that is building up in the system? And do you check vitamin D levels of patients on a regular basis?
We don't, and we probably should, especially when people are supplementing with large doses of vitamin D. It is a fat-soluble vitamin, so it's stored in the liver, and that's why we're always a little bit cautious about saying you can take as much as you want. There is a test that we can have done. I think it's quite costly, and that's why we don't usually ask for it unless we're concerned that somebody's taking too much. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And another one, is there one from the audience? Question from the audience? Okay. Well, here's one. Why are mental health disorders more common in people with MS, and does it have anything to do with the lesion load in their brain?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to give you a specific answer to that. Anthony Feinstein has done some very good work on this, again, out of Toronto. And it's not so much the total number of lesions or the total amount. It does depend a bit on location, and I won't be able to quote him accurately, so I'm not going to try to do that. But he has done some work in this area, and if you look up Dr. Feinstein's work, you'll see reference to that. And he has been looking at MRIs and its association with depressive symptoms in individuals with MS. Why do people with MS have depression? I think that there are many reasons, and as I said, I think many years ago it was just attributed to, well, you know, I'd be depressed if I had MS too, and it didn't go further than that. I think these days we understand a lot more about the long word is the psychoneuroimmunology, so the effects on brain of immunological and neurologic factors. There are clearly associations between changes in brain immunologic functioning and that's associated with depression outside of MS alone, and there's probably some associations there that we really don't fully understand yet. Again, that's hopefully something that we will learn more about as we find out more about these associations and start to look at individuals who have depression and individuals who don't, who both have MS, and start to tease these things apart a bit more. So the long answer that I just gave you is that or the short version of that is that we really don't understand yet. There are some associations with lesions in the brain, but it's more location than number, and there's probably many other factors that are associated with the presence of depression and MS.
Okay. And now I'm going to flip that on its head because, as some of you know, there's a woman who is one of our community, and her contention is that there tends to be a happiness factor in people who have MS. That you put a group of MS people in the same room, and there's laughter, and there's joking, and there's carrying on, and there's all of this good camaraderie that doesn't necessarily seem to be as present in the general population. That's from her perspective. And she's wondering, is there something else going on in the brain that causes this? Is there either a deficiency or an addition of something, or is it the medications? Do you have any comment on whether or not there's this happiness quotient that's involved? And that's my own word. It's not really an official anything. But she has mentioned it several times, and I'm curious about it as well, and I wonder if you could just comment on that, Dr. Fisk? Just to really put you on the spot.
There's nothing wrong with being happy. No, I guess there's a couple of ways to look at that. So first of all, as I said, there's nothing wrong with being happy, and having a good sense of humor will get you through damn near anything, as far as I can see. So it's important, and that's part of, again, taking control. And I think when you recognize that, I'm who I am, I have MS, that doesn't change me. I'm still, the person that I am. I can live with this, and I can take control. That can kind of free you up a bit, and I think that there are many people who are just deal with things well. They have that resiliency, and they're going to do well. I think that's a lot of it. There are some people who, I guess are unaware of the severity of the problems that they're facing. So you will see in some instances with people with particular types of brain injuries or brain damage, a lack of awareness of deficit. And there's a fancy name for that called anosognosia, a failure to recognize things. So, but I don't think that's the story that we're hearing here. I think, what you're seeing and what you're talking about are people who have come to terms with their illness, who recognize that they can, I wouldn't say overcome, but they can manage it, and happiness is not limited to people who have perfect use of all of their body parts. That's at least in my experience, anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it does speak to the importance of social networks and, being engaged in, even if it's a self-help group or the chapter or a local knitting club, or, getting together with the fellas for coffee down at your local coffee shop, or having them over if you can't get out to the coffee shop. Laughter's a good thing. And speaking of laughter, and what leads to that is eating and food and lots of good stuff. Could you maybe give us some examples of healthy, protein-enriched snacks that are easy for people to access, and across the range of having no difficulty at all with swallowing to having maybe some challenges with that? That would be really helpful.
Sure. Protein is, that's a common question I get. I'm a big believer in peanut butter, and you can get some real healthy peanut butters right now. You can get almond butter and different nut butters, and the trick with them, when you open them, there's oil on top, and that's a good thing. Store it upside down, says Teresa. Stir it. Keep it in the fridge. Those are really healthy sources of nutrition. So peanut butter is a great thing. Peanut butter on a graham cracker, there's nothing better. Peanut butter on a slice of apple, a piece of banana. Cottage cheese. The dairy group gives us all kinds of beautiful protein. Cottage cheese, you can go from low fat to high fat. You can add fruit to that. Cheese, again, low fat to high fat, depending on what your needs are. There's all kinds of neat individual servings of cheese available now that make it easy to take along for a snack. A boiled egg. The cafeteria at the rehab started selling cold boiled eggs, and we're eating them like snacks. 73 calories, 7 grams of protein. It's wonderful. Nuts, if swallowing's not a problem, nuts is a great option. Nuts is not a great option if you're having problems swallowing. Smoked salmon. You can get smoked salmon. It's a great...
Writing that one down.
And my mouth is watering. Smoked salmon on and some cream cheese on a bagel. It's wonderful. When swallowing becomes challenging, that gets trickier. We talk a lot then about things like yogurt and cottage cheese, and you can even get creamed cottage cheese if you're having trouble swallowing. Some of the softer cheeses are okay if you're having trouble swallowing. It certainly does get more challenging. Depending on whether weight's a concern, I would encourage people to get things like pudding and add skim milk powder to it. So you make your own high-protein pudding. Egg custard is an easy-to-swallow high-protein choice. Ensure and Boost, high-protein, not always the whole can. I started encouraging people to take like a quarter of a cup. It's high in protein, it's high in nutrients, and it's easy to get down. Sometimes with swallowing, liquids can be the most difficult thing to do, so using things to thicken, something like Ensure or Boost. You can use pudding or yogurt to thicken and make that easier to swallow as well. So that's probably more than you were looking for, but those are some protein ideas.
Great. Good, thank you. Are there any further questions from the group? Yeah. Okay. So the question is, once a year we get to see the neurologist, and at that point we are tested on the EDSS scale, and that's a snapshot of that one day, but how is that extrapolated or looked at from the context of the prior year or where you're going in the next several months?
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. It is a snapshot, you're right. It's how you're doing that day, and I'm not going to try to defend it. I don't necessarily think it's the best of measures from a variety of different angles, but what we've done is track that information on an annual basis for years, so we do get an idea about people's trajectories and over time and whether that's changed or not. It's a summary measure of the neurologist's ratings, so they tote it all up and say this is a number, and that tells them something about you. But it is just a snapshot of how you're doing that day. Most of the things that they measure on that are not necessarily going to fluctuate to a large extent from day to day in terms of how they measure it. from what I understand. I don't do this myself, you understand. And the criticism of that as a measure is that largely once you get to a certain extent of disability, it largely becomes a measure of ambulation. That's the way it was developed. And again, it was developed by a neurologist, John Kurtzke, as a way of establishing a common language for neurologists to talk to each other about where an individual was at a given point of time. But yeah, it would be nicer to see you more often. Would love to have you come in regularly and have more data points. It isn't feasible clearly and it's not necessary. You don't want to be coming into the clinic and being subjected to that on a regular basis. So it is what it is, and it's what they use. It's less than perfect, and we understand that. But over time, it does give us meaningful information in terms of the trajectory of someone's neurologic status from their standpoint. Okay.
Great. Thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments? Yes. So the question is there a problem with having too much calcium?
Yes, you can take too much calcium. There was a study done that found that people who were taking a lot of calcium supplements were having some buildup in their arteries, and it was resulting in cardiac concerns. So when you are deciding to take a calcium supplement, we encourage you to look at how much calcium you're already getting in your diet and count that. And we can talk about how much milk you're drinking or yogurt you're eating, get a guess how much calcium you're taking in, and then specifically suggest a supplement for you. It wasn't long ago when we were saying that you should take 500 milligrams 3 times a day, but that has changed.
So what would be a recommended daily?
We like to see people take 1,200 milligrams a day and look at your diet and see where you're already getting some. Do you drink milk?
No, not necessarily.
No.
I eat yogurt.
Okay.
I have coffee with milk.
Right. So you would.
It's a calcium-added milk.
Okay, good.
What you notice under is calcium-added.
You might be someone who would only need to take 500 milligrams a day rather than the old 1,500.
It's just that I've been taking calcium for the calcium supplement for about 15, 20 years.
How much are you
Because of
taking? Osteoporosis. Yes.
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't even checked on that.
We would just encourage you to consider what you're getting in your diet as well. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay, well, I think we're going to draw to a close at this point. There are a couple of comments I'd like to make. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening, and for those folks who are watching this at home, thank you for taking the time to go through this session. I'd like to thank our 2 presenters, Dr. John Fisk and Karen Gibson. These presentations were excellent this evening, and as you heard from our audience, it's dealing with the individual rather than the disease as a whole, and there's some real take-homes here, some things that we can walk away with that we didn't know before, or things that have been affirmed or supported in our thinking, and now we can go forward and move into our lives as we go through this journey. I'd like you to continue having these conversations with each other. Get involved with our local chapters or with our self-help groups. There are several people here who are involved with self-help groups, and they know how valuable that can be, just to be connected to other human beings. And even if you cannot always get out to the meetings, someone will give you a call. That's the whole point of it, is to build that social network so that you are not alone, and you don't need to feel alone. Then you can actually have a laugh with someone over the phone. So if you would like to do that, please connect with people, and feel free to call us anytime. We are there for you. That's why we exist. So please call us, and we can connect you with other people and other programs, and just chat as it is. I always say to people when they drop by for whatever reason to see Valerie or to drop off some funds they raised for the MS walk or whatever, anytime you feel like coming by, just give us a call. We'll throw on a pot of tea, get a few cookies. Sorry. We're gonna maybe we shouldn't have caffeine and sugar. I don't know, but we've got lots of space in our office, and it's your space. It's there's a lovely big window there and some comfortable chairs and lots of room for anyone who might be using a wheelchair or a scooter. So come by and just tell us how your day's going, and we'll make you laugh a few times, and we'll share some good stories together. We exist for you. And I'd also just like to point out two or three other things that our Listening to People Affected by MS survey that is just launched today. I really want to encourage you to take part in that. You heard several times this evening from our presenters that your perspective on the needs that you have and how the society can best help support those needs need to be expressed. You are the experts. You are the professionals in this disease. We are the ones who support you through it. So please get online and do that survey, and anybody in your family or any of your friends, send it out to your email list, because anybody knows someone with MS. They have a friend with MS, so they can make a comment on what they see. And all the surveys take you down different paths depending on whether or not you're a person with MS, whether you're a caregiver, a family member, or a friend. It'll take about 20 minutes to do it, but it is well worth doing, and it will inform what we do in the future. So it's really important that you do fill out this survey. And if you need a hard copy, give us a call and we'll get you that as well, because we know that not everybody can get things online, so we're here to support you through that. And the other program I really wanted to talk about for just a minute was Families Helping Families Living with MS. And again, that's the one where I said it's about parents where one of the partners may have MS, and it can be either one of those partners can be involved in the self-help group, but partners with young children. And how do you cope with not only the MS and its effect on your life, but how does it affect your kids, and how do you deal with that? This is a teleconference, so it can be anyone across the division in any of the 4 provinces. So if you know someone who that might be helpful for, please get in touch with us, or have them, call Valerie, and we'll, again, get you hooked up so that you can take part in this. And you don't have to call every month, but if you'd like to, it's there for you. And we've had a couple of meetings already that have been very, very productive. And the other thing I would point out is that physical activity guidelines for people living with MS have just recently been released. And again, you can call Valerie to get that information, or check our website for further information on physical activity. And also visit the YouTube channel, or the MS YouTube channel, because there is a session that we did last year on mobility, and it was actually led by Dr. Christine Short. And that's online now, has been for the better part of a year, and it's really excellent. It was a wonderful presentation, again, geared the same way as this one has been, as to how does it affect you and what can you take home from that session. So please, by all means, use the resources that are there. They're there for you. So once again, I'd like to thank the volunteers and staff who got this session off the ground this evening, and especially Dr. Fisk and Ms. Gibson for their information and for sharing everything with us. I'd also like to thank Novartis, EMD Serono, Shoppers Drug Mart Specialty Health Network, Biogen IDEC, and Teva Canada Innovation for their support with an unrestricted educational grant. The last thing I will ask you to do is to fill out the evaluation form. These are critical. They guide where we go with the next round. And over the years, you have said to us that you wanted something that was more in tune with what your needs are as a person living with MS and as a person who cares about someone who lives with MS. And that's why the education sessions are geared the way they are. So your commentary is really important. We listen to it, we pay attention to it, and we build on it. So please fill out the evaluation form. You can leave them on the table or leave them on your seats, and we'll collect them at the end of the evening. So that's it for tonight. I will invite you to stay if you'd like and have some coffee and cookies. There's water over there too if you just want to have a pine float. but enjoy what's here, enjoy each other's company, and thank you so much for coming out. It's been a great pleasure to serve you and to continue to serve you. Good night.